Together. I would like to say thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming to this press conference at such short notice. At 8 this morning, the city of eThekwini was meant to open the third Social Cohesion Conference on the theme Black History, and some 500 participants were ready to attend together with panelists, facilitators, and speakers. At the unsolicited invitation of the City Council, I was to deliver a 40-minute opening address. But just after 20 hours, after 10 p.m. last night, the city manager contacted the head of the Parks Creation and Culture Unit, Mr. Temikosi Ngobo, giving a directive that he was not to proceed with the event. Despite the speakers and participants being in Durban already, despite the venue having been hired for a three-day conference, and despite arrangement for ANN7 to cover the opening session live, the whole event was being cancelled. I received this news 21:30 last night via a phone call from actually someone in Ulundi in my office who was phoned by a young lady by the name of Mandisa, who said that, who conveyed that message. That is the manager of the Parks Recreation and Culture Unit. When my office made inquiries to confirm this information, because I phoned my secretary in Cape Town to verify this, we were told quite bizarrely that no reason had been advanced for the directive. I'm left with many questions. This conference, ladies and gentlemen, was postponed once before. As you have seen the two invitations. I initially received an invitation on the 12th of April 2017 to open the conference on the 29th of May. However, when my office called on 12th May to confirm my attendance, we were informed that the conference had been postponed and a letter would be sent with details. Now, that letter came a week later, which I have given to you, with a new date of 19 June and a renewed request that I open the conference. According to the invitation, my acceptance had, and I quote, added a weighty legitimacy to our event and generated an unprecedented interest among the organizers, unquote. I accepted the new date and made preparations accordingly. I'm acutely aware of the need for events of this nature in order to address social fragmentation in eThekwini and in KwaZulu and Natal in general, or in fact, for that matter, in South Africa. I've pursued social cohesion and reconciliation for several decades, and I have much to say on the matter. But apparently, someone higher up in the chain of command doesn't want to hear what Mangosuthu Buthelezi is going to say on the matter. I cannot understand why I was invited in the first place if there is no political will to see things through. I asked the question, what is the point of a conference on social cohesion when those who pull the strings in KwaZulu-Natal are dead set on obstructing reconciliation? There will undoubtedly be some excuse peddled for why this three-day conference couldn't take place. But the fact is that it was cancelled with less than 12 hours notice. The directive came from above, the City Council, and no reasons were given. I think the young lady who spoke to a member of my staff in Ulundi had a slip of the tongue because he said it was politicians who have given instruction to them to cancel it. So I'm not a fool, you know. No, I hope I don't even look like one. I've interacted with the ANC leadership in this province for long enough to have noticed a very sad pattern of behavior. In 1989, just before his release from prison, Mr. Mandela wrote to me lamenting the violence between our supporters and asking that we meet immediately upon his release to find a way to stop the carnage that was taking place. And of course I agreed. But for months after his release, apart from phoning me to thank me for my role in his release, but he seemed to avoid meeting with me. Finally, during a visit to the Eastern Cape, some of the traditional leaders asked Mr. Mandela why we had not yet met, because as our friendship was well known, he answered that ANC leaders, could quote him verbatim, almost throttled him when he tried to meet with me, forbidding him from meeting with me. It was a year before we finally met at the Royal Hotel here in Durban on the 29th of January 1991. We talked, and there we signed a joint agreement for reconciliation and peace, which we released in a joint communique, committing ourselves to share a podium at rallies from then onwards and events in order to show our supporters of our genuine commitment to reconciliation. In other words, rallies of ANC and IFP members. Shortly thereafter, I received an invitation to address a rally at Taylor's Halt near Maritzburg, and I invited Mr. Mandela. I said, here is the opportunity for him to join me. He immediately agreed, with alacrity, if I may say. But as the date drew nearer, I heard a rumor that he was no longer going to attend. Dr. Dlomo, who was then our Secretary General, told me. I therefore called Madiba to inquire about this rumor, and he told me that Mr. Herikwala, who was the leader of the ANC here in the province and leader of the Communist Party, had brought a busload of ANC leaders from KwaZulu-Natal, and they descended on Shell House, where their offices were at the time, to come and stop him. In other words, to forbid him going out with me to Taylor's Hall. Thus, the commitment to reconciliation was again aborted. Now, in 1999, with the end of the Government of National Unity, President Mbeki recognized the outstanding issue of reconciliation between us and our people, and invited me to take up the position of Deputy President of South Africa. Before that appointment could be announced, however, ANC leaders in KwaZulu-Natal pressured President Mbeki into placing rather an impossible condition on my appointment. In other words, Mr. Mbeki invited me to Oliver Tambo House, where he lived in Pretoria, to offer me the position officially. He then told me that the leaders from KwaZulu-Natal demanded that I must first give KwaZulu-Natal to the ANC. The electorate had voted for the NIFE leadership in the province, and this province was at the time under the NIFE premier. These ANC leaders knew very well that I would not trample democracy by disrespecting the will of the electorate in the province. They knew that I could not just hand over KwaZulu-Natal to them. Thus, my appointment as Deputy President was scuppered because I then declined to take that position. But still, I must say, in fairness to Mr. Mbeki, he nevertheless asked me if I could then continue to be a minister under him. We finally agreed that I should continue to be a Minister of Home Affairs under his watch. So, to me, it is no coincidence that the most prominent of those leaders was Mr. Jacob Zuma himself, the same Mr. Jacob Zuma who then became Deputy President himself. I must say that, as you know, Mr. Joe Matthews of my party was a Deputy Minister of Safety and Security, as that department was called at the time, and he worked with Mr. Mufumadi. he had been telling me when it was an open secret that I was going to be appointed deputy president, that Mr. Muhammad had told him that they were getting surprised because that Mr. Zuma is now going around talking to leaders of the ANC saying that he wants to take the position himself of deputy president. I relate all these things, ladies and gentlemen, because they show a clear pattern of behavior within the ANC. There are some who genuinely believe in social cohesion and reconciliation. They are there. I know them. And who are willing to take the necessary steps to achieve it. But there is another group who hold an enormous amount of power, who are determined never to see these old wounds healed. This comes at the cost of social cohesion. So I'm sick to the bottom of my stomach of the games being played with our nation's unity, stability, prosperity, and hope. The people of eThekwini have been disrespected. We deserve to know the reasons, the real reasons, for the sudden cancellation of the conference. Mind you, even His Majesty the King was invited to this conference. We deserve to know how such an enormous waste of money can possibly be justified. And we deserve to know who pulled the strings to bring down the curtain when they heard that Buthelezi was going to speak. I'm determined to see the dialogue of social cohesion continue. I'm therefore making copies available to you, ladies and gentlemen, of the address I would have delivered at the opening of the conference this morning. And I ask you, the members of the media, to keep this dialogue alive for the sake of those who are genuinely committed to South Africa's well-being. I thank you. I hope you will not be angry with me and say I should not have invited you for this, but to me, this is very important, and I thought not just for us, but also for the people of KwaZulu-Natal and for the people of South Africa.
Questions now, or we
Then, of course, my secretary in Cape Town complained, actually, to Mr. Ngobo. So this morning, I actually, there were two emails that I found on my desk. One was addressed to my secretary in Ulundi. And one is addressed to me.